Hi, I'm Zoe from breadin5.com, and today I'm going to be mixing up a gluten-free bread from Healthy Bread in 5 Minutes a Day. We have an entire chapter devoted to gluten-free dough. In order to have any structure to the dough, you have to add something called xanthan gum. And xanthan gum is added to the dough, and it gives the dough a bit of suspension and also gives it that stretch and the pull and the structure that it needs in order to rise. I started with a bucket, just like we do with all of our other doughs. And in our bucket, I have all of our flours, things like rice flour and tapioca flour, cornstarch even sometimes. Whatever the recipe calls for, all of the flours just get dumped right into the bucket. From there, we're gonna add our liquids. I have a bit of eggs, just dump that right into the bucket, and our oil. Our yeast can either go in with the liquids or actually with the dry ingredients, it doesn't really matter. And then our measured out water. And we just dump all of that into our bucket. And I'm gonna try using our Danish dough whisk, which we love for our other doughs, and I think it'll work just perfect. Mix that up just like we do with all of our other doughs, just until all the dry ingredients are incorporated with the water. And then once that's all mixed up, you're gonna have spongy looking dough this time. Once that's all incorporated, we'll just put our lid on. We're gonna leave this on the counter for about 2 hours, and we'll take a look and see what it looks like after that. Two hours has passed and the dough has risen. It's more than doubled. Either bake this right away, if I just pull some out, and you can see it's pretty sticky and kind of spongy looking, and that's exactly what the gluten-free dough will look like. I'm actually gonna refrigerate this, and then we're gonna come back and bake some bread. Yesterday I mixed up my gluten-free dough, and today I wanna bake a boule. So let's take a look at what we've got. This has been refrigerated for probably just under 24 hours, and yesterday when I picked it up, it was really soft and really spongy, so it has a little bit more structure today. It's a little bit easier to handle, not quite as sticky. We want to use water to dip into the bucket as opposed to dusting it with flour like we usually do. We're just going to dip our hands in a little bit of water and then pick that dough right up out of the bucket, just with some water, and that way you can see my hands won't stick to it at all. Unlike our wheat doughs, this one has no stretch to it, so you'll notice that when I took it out, it was just basically tore right out of the bucket. To form the ball, I could just leave it like that, but I want to smooth out the top of it. So I'm just going to keep dipping my hands in some of the water so I don't stick, and then I'm just going to flatten this out with my hands, just gently smoothing out the edges with wet hands. Once I have this nice and smoothed out, I'll just let this rest. I am going to cover it with a little bit of plastic wrap loosely, and then we'll come back and we'll bake it. Gluten-Free Boule has been resting for 90 minutes, so let's take a look. Just like all of our other doughs, you may not get that doubling in size that you're used to with traditional bread, but it did rise a bit, and hopefully we'll get a really nice oven spring once we get it into the oven. Use my wet hands to brush the top of this. I thought that I'd add a little bit of sesame seeds, so I'm just going to sprinkle on some sesame seeds right onto the top. And I do this before I slash, so that when I do slash it, I'll have the contrast of the sesame seeds and then the part that opens up. I'm going to use a serrated knife. I'm going to gently hold the dough so that it doesn't sort of wiggle back and forth. And I'm going to cut about 1/4 of an inch. And every time I make a cut, I clean off that blade with a little bit of water. And that way it will sort of slide right through the dough. And that's it. Now we're ready to take it to the oven. Our slashed, risen, gluten-free dough will go into a 450-degree oven, and we'll bake it for about 35 minutes. And we're gonna add some steam to get a crust on the top. So just slide it right on top of our preheated stone. Add our steam, and then come back in 35 minutes and see what we've got. The bread just came out of the oven. It looks great. And we'll just peel it right off of the parchment paper. And you can see that we got a really nice oven spring, and that crust is just gorgeous. So we'll leave it, we'll let it cool, and then we'll cut into it.